Hello and welcome. This is going to be just a quick demonstration of a couple of systems some of my squad mates were asking about recently. Those two in particular being the time on target and, or time over steer point rather, and the ILS. Bear in mind this is just systems familiarity. I am not a real pilot by any means. Just demonstrating how it's implemented in DCS and not necessarily following correct procedures for using it. So let's go ahead and get this show on the road. Now starting out here, we are in active pause, and let me just set down my keyboard. There we go. And turn up display brightnesses. There we go. So we'll start with time over steer point. So we got steer point 1 out in front of us here. Currently we are not set up for a particular time of arrival. So if I did want a specific time over steer point, all I would have to do is go to steer point. And you could also do this through the list destination page. And then select steer 1. And you've got this TOS, time over steer point field. So what you can do, you plug in the time you want. So let's say, for example, let's say I wanted to arrive at 16:35:00 Zulu. Plug that in, and then come over here to the cruise page, and then notice the text here, the TOS, time over steer point, is not boxed by default. So I'm going to go ahead and hit mode select or MCell to select it. Now what you'll see, once that's enabled, on the HUD down here on the airspeed ribbon here, you got this little caret that indicates the speed you have to fly to arrive at the selected time. Now, I'm in active pause, so as far as the sim is concerned, time is moving on, but I am not, so you can see the speed is slowly increasing if I want to arrive on time. So let's say, for example, and you can also modify the time from this page as well. So if I wanted to, say I wanted to arrive at 16:34 and 0 seconds. There you see, it's much sooner, so I'm going to have to speed up to make it. Pretty easy. All you got to do, once you got that filled in, let me just get out of active pause here. There we go. Is just follow that caret. And it will get you there on time. So let's say 16:35. So in this case, I'm going to have to slow down a fair bit. What I could also do, because that's giving me the time or the speed to arrive if I fly directly to the steer point, is I can just throw a couple of shapes in here. So just turn away, fly away from the objective a little bit, or at least not directly towards it. And as you can see, the speed is kind of starting to creep up. In any case, so eventually your goal is you want to be headed directly towards the selected steer point with the caret centered up. So I'm going to go ahead and get on steer point here. There we go, on course. And I'm going to go ahead and reset that. Okay, so it's giving me just over 300 knots. Down in my navigation info block there, you see 16:35:01. It's my projected time of arrival. If I were in air-to-ground mode, you still have that same information, but then you would also have projected time to impact for whatever weapon you happen to be armed with, in this case GBU-38s. And you just fly the caret. You eventually arrive on time. So I'm getting a little fast, so I'm going to pull back the power. And might as well go ahead and get these bombs off real quick. Now one thing I can point out here, so if I were to change steer points, the time over steer point is still enabled, but I didn't modify the time over steer point for steer 3. So now it thinks I need to go way slower, or steer 2 rather. So if you have that enabled, you're going to need to either only worry about it when you're flying to a particular selected steer point, or you will want to set all of your steer points appropriately based on your flight plan, or more than likely just not worry about it at all. Now see, I'm getting pretty close, and you can see the speed is increasing rapidly. That's because it's, well, just physically not possible for me unless I accelerate like crazy. But there we are, over steer point, and I was 1 second late, so not bad. In any case, let's go ahead and move on to the next point here. So we're going to talk about ILS. So what we've got here, let me just pull up the kneeboard page here, and I've got a waypoint set up at Batumi. So say I'm going to land on Batumi, and I don't necessarily know that I'm going to be able to see it very well. So their kneeboard page here, you could also view this in the F10 map. Got ILS, for this case runway 12, or it's 110.3. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. That's TACAN ILS. I'll just use the mouse so you can see what I'm doing. TACAN ILS, dauber down to the frequency here. That was 110.3. Enter. And then course. This is the magnetic runway heading. So if I were to zoom in a little bit here, you see the magnetic heading is 119 for that runway. 119. Enter. And then you can return to get out of that. Now, how do you actually use it? Well, it's down here on your EHSI. Hit the mode button, and you'll see PILS nav. This tells me that it's looking at my waypoints, my navigation flight plan for where it thinks I need to be, and it's got the ILS selected. You'll notice the CDI, the course deviation indicator, that needle, is currently dotted out, which means that it's set to the course, the 119, you can see in the top right corner, and it is not currently getting any steering information. Once we get closer in and within the range of the ILS, it'll turn to a solid line, and you'll see the center of it deflect off to the side. So my setup here, I've got my currently selected steer point is about 10 miles off the runway center line, and then the next steer point 4 there, is the actual airfield itself. So, other things that you get from this, you'll see on your ADI, attitude direction indicator here, you've got those 2 yellow needles. You've got the Morse code signal indicating that you're receiving something from the ILS. That's the Morse code identifier for the ILS. You'll see on the kneeboard page here, BTM. If you knew Morse code, which I don't, you'd be able to compare that against what you're hearing and know that you're tuned to the right frequency. In addition to that, up in the HUD here, you've got those 2 lines you see right above the velocity vector there. The top one is your glide slope, and that indicates if you're high, if you're low. The other one is your center line, your localizer. Now that one indicates if you're right or left. Now, right now the localizer is getting a signal, which means it's so it's a solid line, and it's off to the right, which means that I am to the left of center line. So I'm just gonna turn on my, there we go, so I can see the waypoint if I look over out that way. So I'm gonna go ahead and start turning towards it. And then you also have this little circle here. It gives you some steering guidance. Not really super useful right now, but once you get in closer, that'll be a little more handy, kind of help you get on glide slope smoothly. There you go. You see the localizer starting to come in. Now that's because it thinks that the airfield is at the waypoint, so I'm going to go ahead and actually disregard that. No, it doesn't. Okay, so I've overshot the center line. I'm just going to keep this turn coming. Alright, and obviously in these conditions it's not super useful since you can just, well, see the ground. But, say if I couldn't see the ground right now, I'd know that I am to the right of center line and that I do not have any vertical guidance yet, based on the dashed. There we go. Now solid, it means that I have a glide slope, and I know that I am low. So I'm gonna just stay level. My steering guidance is pointing me off to the left here, so I'm gonna follow that. And you'll see the needle starting to slowly center up. I'm gonna get my speed under control here and stop jabbering a little bit. Just kind of following the steering guidance in. There we go, drop the gear. Trying to do this and talk at the same time is not super productive. We're gonna go ahead and just follow the guidance here. So I'm more or less on center line, a little above, or correction, a little below glide slope. So I'm just gonna keep it coming down. Keep it coming down. I'm also a little fast, so I'm gonna lose a little speed as well. Apologies if you hear someone pounding on my door. My roommate's child has no sense of personal space. Just gonna dim the HUD a little bit here so we can see a bit better. And so ideally what you'd want to do is you just follow the needles in. You can do the same thing down here on your ADI. Follow the needles in until you can see the ground. And then once you can, you just guide it the rest of the way in visually. In this case, I can see the ground a little bit earlier, but for the sake of showing off the system. So I am fast, I am very slightly high. There we go. And if I were to zoom in a little bit, yeah, there we go. You can see the PAPI lights. And notice the PAPI lights are all red, even though it says I'm on glide slope. They are giving me a slightly different glide slope. ILS gives you 3 degrees, and I actually don't know what the PAPI here gives you, but I think it's something like 3.8. So really you could follow either one in. I'm sure there's a right way to handle that when there's a disagreement between the two systems, but again, as mentioned, I am not a pilot. I'm just a guy with an expensive video game. And so right around here, it'd probably be where I'd pick it up if it was a really heavy, foggy day, and then I would just fly it in the rest of the way with my eyeballs, and just ignoring the symbology at this point. Yeah, I'm heavy, and this is a long, or a not very long runway, so braking a little more aggressively than I normally would. A lot more aggressively than I normally would. Yeah, go figure. 10,000 pounds of fuel. And that's the long and the short of it. Hope this is helpful. If not, feel free to flame me in the comments. Until next time.